Thursday, 22nd of August. Hello to you, listener, and well done for picking Totally Football Show for your podcast experience today, because it's going to be a special show. Got Charlie Eccleshare on his way to the airport.
Hello.
Hello, Charlie. Do you want to elaborate on that, or should we save that?
Well, yeah, I'm off to New York.
You're literally going straight after this?
Yeah, pretty much.
Woo!
Yeah, for the US Open.
You think that's glamorous? Liam Tharme straight after this is going to be on the Athletic FC's Football Tactics podcast.
Hello.
Liam, hello to you. What are you going to be discussing on the Football Tactics podcast?
Why not to have knee-jerk reactions after match day one? So trying to relax everyone a bit. Basically just kill fans' sort of hopes from winning the first game.
Having just done that on this podcast.
Say, could be awkward.
Look at the running order, quick.
There's a theme.
That's Natalie Gedra.
Hello.
Last heard, piggybacking on a Rory Smith interview from the Euro final.
Yeah, it's all Rory's fault. Yeah.
Nice to see you, Natalie.
Good to see you.
I just want to ask Liam quickly, what was the number one knee-jerk reaction that you're going to be singling out from week one?
I think just like any team that's won comfortably. So like it would be Everton, don't completely panic. There's probably like broader things there, but like that's not the end of the world.
Right.
Spurs, the sort of 45-minute split from half-time to full-time of like, oh my God, they're doing really, really well, and then drop 2 points.
Nice.
So, yeah.
There's glass half full then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
What about Brighton?
Well, we'll come on to them, right?
We will come on to Brighton, yeah. Okay.
Otherwise I won't stop talking, so.
Indeed. Charlie, you're heading out to the US Open tennis, which is your new jam. Jai Deep, a.k.a. Dr. Jai Khan, says, please ask Charlie whether he thinks tennis can learn something from football and whether he misses VAR.
Whether I miss VAR. Well, that's been a big talking point in tennis, actually.
Has it?
Yeah, the lack of VAR.
Really?
Yeah, because there was an incident with Jack Draper where on match point, he hit the ball, and it was whether he hit the ball into the ground first, whether it was a double hit.
weird.
It was very weird, and he won the match. And his opponent, Felix Auger-Aliassime, was kind of like, WTF. But they had no VAR, though they do have VAR in the US Open. But the irony is, like, tennis, VAR would work really well. They've used it a bit. It's very simple. Whereas, obviously, football as a sport, VAR doesn't work. So
I always assumed that it was way ahead of football because it had Hawkeye.
Yeah, exactly. Which covers like 90% of these. You know, these other issues are very, very rare. But to answer the question, what could tennis learn from football?
The other way around.
Yeah, I don't know.
What could football learn from tennis? Boy, it's a big question to spring on you, Charlie. We can come back to it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depends what you like. I mean, tennis is, I don't know, Natalie, if you'd agree, is a bit less tribal than football.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But some people love tribalism. So, yeah, maybe there's a happy medium somewhere.
And mental resilience. I always say that tennis is the sport that demands more from mental resilience.
Right.
Yes, more than football. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I think tennis is like, the idea of doing what they have to do is kind of, to me, completely incomprehensible, like mental strength-wise. Whereas I can kind of imagine if I had the talent, then I could sort of follow Pep Guardiola's like really micromanage instructions and sort of deliver in that way.
Whereas
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chelsea, you can't. Sorry. Okay, well, so much to tackle today with the football, particularly intriguing second weekend of fixtures on the way. Begins Saturday lunchtime with Brighton facing Man United at 3 o'clock. To the transistors for Spurs, Everton, Palace, West Ham, Saints, Nottingham Forest, and Fulham, Leicester. Oh, and also Man City hosting Ipswich Town. Last time these two teams met, well, we'll talk about that later on. Tea time on Saturday. Aston Villa take on Arsenal. Was that a big clash last season? Yes, it was. Sunday at 2 o'clock, Bournemouth against Newcastle. I guess the longest distance clash in the Premier League this
Southampton is, which is, because it always used to be Southampton, Newcastle.
Did it?
Before, yeah, but that was before Bournemouth became a going concern.
Yeah, because I went to Bournemouth yesterday.
Did you?
And I passed I passed Southampton. I passed Newcastle.
Right.
Can you imagine
No, but
this
you would
route?
because of the motorway system. Did you drive? Or
No,
train. But also the
Is it a
train.
training ground thing as well versus stadium? How are we coordinating this for...
Yeah.
No,
Also,
but the training ground at Bournemouth is inside the stadium. I was shocked with that.
What?
Yeah. You have the stadium,
campus,
and then you go
I
past
did know
like
that.
2 doors,
Okay.
and then you're in the training ground.
Okay, that's handy. Anyway, also at 2 o'clock on Sunday, there's Wolves against Chelsea, Pedro Neto derby, and at 4:30, Super Sunday is Liverpool Brentford. First for us, let's go to Villa Park. Noted Cockney Pearly Kings, Aston Villa taking on Arsenal Saturday 2:30. Villa, of course, are the team who cost Arsenal the title last season. Charlie, the fatal blow coming in April at the Emirates with a 2-0 win there, but Arsenal also lost away at Villa Park. Didn't score against Unai Emery's side in either meeting. It's a big game this for Arsenal. I'm going to ask Liam, though, throw Mikel Arteta a bone. How should he approach Villa this time?
Probably not massively different to what they've done before, I think. I mean, he's got a bad record against Emery, I think. Of the coaches he's faced 5 or more times, he's got a worse record against Emery than anyone else. That's even worse than Guardiola. But I think they've got better in those big games. You see them against City sort of in more recent seasons. I'll be interested to see what they do with the number 9, because I think at the Emirates they went possibly Jesus as the 9 and then Kai Havertz as a number 8. I genuinely think it works better sort of playing a more sort of progressive midfielder as a number 8 that can actually move the ball forward, and then having Havertz in the box. I think he works good enough as a number 9 there, and it was probably a case more of missed chances than not sort of creating enough. So from a coaching perspective, I guess there's not a lot he can do besides train it a bit and sort of hope that they do score on the day.
Yeah, I mean, in both the games, actually, Arsenal had their chances. And in the Villa Park game, Arteta was suspended. He wasn't in the dugout. And for such a micromanaging coach, I think that was fairly significant, especially as it was one of those games where Villa would play in their high line. And you did feel a lot of the times, Arsenal players needed someone being like, can we exploit this? Can you basically, find the pass, make the run in behind, which they didn't do especially well. But first half of that away game, they had a lot of chances. And at home, there was the Trossard one in the first half. Martinez made an amazing save. I mean, Martinez is so, he loves being the guy anyway, but...
Of course.
And who just got a new contract.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
2029, Dibu Martinez. Yeah, he just got a new contract, which is big for Villa.
What is that nickname?
Dibu.
Yeah, where does that come from?
I'm glad you asked. Okay, so because in Argentina, they all call him Dibu. They never say Emi Martinez. It's always Dibu Martinez because it's a childhood. It's a family nickname. There was this show in Argentina that was called My Family is a Drawing. Mi Familia es un Dibujo. And it was basically... Drawing. Yes. So it was basically a drawing that interacted with a family, nice. Kind of like Space Jam, but without the basketball and right, Michael Jordan and everything.
Or like Take On Me by A-ha.
Yes, that's a good example, yeah. So yeah, and he looked like the drawing, the dibujo.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, so yeah, it's Dibu.
Cartoon.
Dibu Martinez.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Natalie, you were at Villa's opening day win at West Ham.
Yeah. It was quite impressive, especially those first 35 minutes. I'm very much looking forward to see how Villa's midfield is going to develop throughout the season, because without Douglas Luiz, there were a few question marks, especially in terms of those passes in the final third. He contributed in that sense a lot. And now they have Onana, which is he's a very different player, but at the same time, he played really well against West Ham. They can benefit from the link with Tielemans in the Belgium national team. So I'm interested to see how this will develop throughout the season, these combinations in midfield.
Yeah, and Onana is a Cockney, so... Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and again, another one of many encounters between managers from the Basque Country.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is happening there? It's so interesting.
I don't know, but something happened, 40-something years ago.
I was speaking actually to Andoni Iraola yesterday, and we were chatting about it. I was like, what's happening in the Basque Country? Because
so 3 of them, I think, all played for this.
Oh, yes.
But not Lopetegui. He's the odd one out.
Yeah, so Iraola, Arteta, and Xabi Alonso, they all played together when they were very young. Alonso, yes. When they were very young. And there was 20 years he hadn't seen Mikel Arteta, and now he faces him in the Premier League. But you have Lopetegui, you have Mendilibar, you have Unai Emery, and they're all from the Basque. It's quite a small region. It's very intriguing. And he even mentioned years ago we had the German coaches, and now we have the Basque Country coaches, but there's no reasonable explanation.
In the the 90s, there was, or maybe noughties, there was one street in Glasgow which had effectively produced 7 Premier League managers, something like that. I might be exaggerating a little bit. It was very much one specific area of Glasgow. But yeah, just one of those things. But
Yeah, it's interesting.
I guess they love their football.
They love their footy down there. I mean, I would say just on I agree with you, Liam, obviously about knee-jerk reactions, but I do think the way City are and how relentless they are, it does put a huge amount of pressure even on these very early games. You know, there's no sense that like, oh, you can maybe ease your way in. I mean, last season, Arsenal drew their 3rd game at home to Fulham and there was a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth. And you kind of think, guys, calm down, it's 3rd game of the season. But ultimately, those 2 points decided the title, you could argue. And, you know, you think City have won 6 of the last 7 titles. The only time they didn't was when Liverpool broke them with an absolutely obscene start to the season, where they won their something like 23 of the first 24 or something. It was something that mad. Now Arsenal have got Villa away, Spurs away, City away, 3 of their first 5 games. So
Wow.
I don't think that, you know, they're not going to be able to do something like that. But what they really need to make sure they don't do is, you know, give City a big-ish lead, or any sort of lead really after 5 games, because we know how strong City will come on. So I do think there is a lot of pressure on this game, even though it is so early in the season.
Absolutely. Last team to beat City in the league, Aston
Villa, yeah, which is crazy because that was in December, wasn't it? They then beat Arsenal a few days later.
We're talking up Arsenal, what they need to do. What about Villa? A lot of people thought that with Champions League football, they were going to maybe not be able to match that. But based on what you've seen so far, Natalie, you think there's every chance that they will?
I still think we have to wait, especially
All right.
because no.
Damn knees.
Yeah. No, because Champions League football really drains you not only physically but mentally. And I really want to see how they deal with that aspect of their season. But when you watch Aston Villa, it's quite impressive how they're like a well-oiled machine. They just work really well as a team. And Unai just did such a great job in the past few seasons. Everything's very clear. They're so organized. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting season to watch Villa, but I really want to know how they're going to cope with that.
Yeah, I mean, that high offside line is a really good example of that because it feels so vulnerable, but the fact that they do it so well again and again speaks to how well they're coached. And I do think as well, you know, having said that Arsenal missed chances in those games against Villa, that's true, but the second half of the game in April, Villa outplayed Arsenal. I mean, they were absolutely brilliant. You know, it wasn't like we're going to come and sit deep and sucker punch. I mean, they did some counter-attacking, but they fully deserved that win. They were the better team.
There you go. 5:30 then Saturday, Villa against Arsenal should be a cracker. Sunday at 4:30 it's Liverpool-Brentford. Jay Harris, after watching Brentford last weekend, quietly confident of the Bees' chances at Anfield. They are yet to score a goal in 3 Premier League visits to that ground. Their last and only victory, indeed, away to Liverpool came in 1937. What was number 1, I wonder?
What was top of the pops in 1937?
Yeah. Anyway.
Chamberlain.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in title terms, Man City, the reigning champions, host Ipswich Saturday at 3. I mentioned last time these 2 teams met in the top division, things being a bit different. Well, actually, it was kind of the same. One of them was chasing the Champions League. The other one ended up relegated. Only you'll never guess which way round it was. As Champions League chasing Ipswich beat Man City 2-1 at Portman Road, condemning Man City to relegation. Wow.
Yeah.
There you
What
go.
was number 1 in
What was
2000?
number one in 2000?
Yeah.
I don't know, actually.
So when was that? April?
It would be kind of end of the
He's
season.
about Premier League, it's not Charlie.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
sure.
producer Charlie's all over that. Just one factual update in the meantime. Bournemouth is further south than Southampton.
Bournemouth is further south, yes.
Okay, while Charlie's chasing
South
that.
Yeah, 30 odd miles.
Okay, so this time, anyway, not sure what's number 1 right now either, but what about Ipswich chances as they make the trip to the Etihad to face a Man City team who've won 10 games in a row in the Premier League, all by at least 2 goals?
Yeah, I think they'll probably win by 2 or more goals, would be my guess.
Yeah. They also haven't lost at home in 44 matches. Luckily, they've got some reinforcements on the way. Ilkay Gundogan. Is that now confirmed, his move back from Barca?
I don't think it's been announced yet, but I
Yeah,
think
but
it's at that stage where you know it's going to be.
It's
Yeah,
going to be,
yeah.
okay.
Which makes sense. I like it.
You like it?
Yeah, I do. I like it. It makes sense. It's a player who not only understands City as a club and Pep as a manager, but he was the core of this team for the past 2 seasons. So he had his thing at Barcelona, and now he's back, and fans love
Imagine
him.
playing now.
Yeah.
Welcome you
now,
back.
now he's
Settle
back to his his true love. So
Do you think it moves the needle much in terms of the title race?
no.
No?
I think the need
don't
is probably
think
already
so.
enough in City's favour, right? I think we'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
I
to speak for the group.
We don't know if City are going to end up at number 1, but we do know what was number 1 back when they last faced Ipswich, and it was "Don't Stop Moving" by S Club 7. I've never heard of or that record.
I was going to guess Atomic Kitten might have been
Oh
number
yeah,
one.
very much
which
of
was-
that era.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But I'm
"Don't Stop
surprised
Moving" by S Club 7. It's not the Soul to Soul
No. So I suppose they were still producing number ones that late. But
or ever.
Cream always rises.
The Tractor Boys, Natalie. What's your favourite English football nickname?
Ooh.
Do you have one? Is it a quirk that you particularly enjoy about English football, or you're not that bothered?
No, I really love the Tractor Boys, but I
Yeah.
think I equally love the time when Marcelo Bielsa was trying to pronounce Ipswich. It's just honestly one of the best things I've ever seen on the internet.
I can't
really.
say Ipswich normally now to people, and some people don't get it.
How did Marcelo say it?
Like
He gave up. That was the
yeah.
brilliant thing. He was like, Ipswich. Oh, just forget
I
it.
think was it during the time when they got done for spying, and he might have been going through like the opposition report or something, and was like, here's all the detail we go, we're playing these next 5 teams, and he was listing them off, and then it was like, this is one of the best managers ever that everyone cites as being a big inspiration. You just can't say Ipswich. And it was,
And he tried.
Is it difficult to say Ipswich if you know?
It
or
is.
Spanish?
It is, yes, because of a combination of consonants. Yeah. It's not straightforward, no.
Okay. In Brazil, all the nicknames, to my mind, are just team colours, aren't they?
No, not really. Like Corinthians is Timão.
Oh, is it? Big
yes,
team.
Yes, big
That's
team. So
quite
yeah, we're not very
picturesque,
creative,
is
as
it?
you can see. Like Tractor Boys is way cooler.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tractor Boys. You got a favourite team nickname?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
I have at least, I think like Citizens just feels really
Boring?
affected.
Oh, yeah? You don't think that's...
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
It feels quite collegiate though. It's quite like NCAA, like
Yeah.
like
It does have that vibe.
Is it because the way it's spelt?
I think the
Y?
spelling is just a
Spelling
bit.
is-
Yeah, it's like what's
Does
going
the
on
Z
here?
jar you with it? Is that what it is?
There's so much going on there.
All right. Got less mileage out of that football nickname chat than I thought we were going to get, but we'll move on then. Okay, next up. Oh, we'll talk about what happened on Monday night in the Premier League. Since our last show, you probably saw Monday night, Leicester held Spurs to a 1-1 draw. The Foxes were widely tipped for a torrid time this season. They went a goal down in this to Pedro Porro's header, but then Jamie Vardy necked a can of Red Bull at half-time. He's 37, came out, scored the equaliser, and then signed off with gesture of the season. Close the books on that. Points to his Premier League badge on his jersey, holds up one finger, points to the Spurs fans, holds up a big fat 0, and then leaves the pitch telling Romero to do one in pretty unequivocal terms. I mean, there are lots of questions here. Marking Jamie Vardy, might that have been an option for Spurs?
Yeah, that was a bit of a throwback to Porro used to get caught out quite a bit at the far post. I mean, that was that sort of 10, 15, 20-minute period Spurs had where it's suddenly, I think when you've been so on top and you're like, how are we drawing this game? It was a weird one. I mean, Vardy is one of those guys who, as long as he's not playing against your team, he's just hilarious and you just love it. And it's so, it's so great to have him back, isn't it? Because he does things like that, which, are just really funny. But fair play to him. I mean, he said, I think he was knackered after about an hour.
Right.
But he nearly scored a second as well.
Yeah.
Which would have a really nice move. I mean, the way lots of short passing and this sort of thing.
Is he their only striker at the moment?
They do have Patson Daka still, but he's injured.
Yeah.
You mean available?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's why he was kind of he had to start. They didn't really have an option, and I don't think he was fully fit.
Yeah, he barely played
He looked like
in
he
pre-season.
injured himself after the shot as well. You're on about where he kicked something and or he did like an air kick in anger, and he looked like he then sort of pulled up the office, but like I shouldn't have done that.
Shouldn't have done the air kick in anger.
Really? 103 goals since the age of 30. Just remarkable.
But Liam's right. I mean, this is exactly the kind of game where I think you do need to not draw too significant conclusions, because Spurs just, you play this game however many times, 10 times, Spurs would win at 9, I think. They were so dominant, and they could have won it at the end anyway, but it was just, missed chance after missed chances. This sort of game, this is why football fans are kind of maniacs, because watching that game 1-0 up, you're battering the opposition, as a fan, you're just like, we're going to draw this. I know we're going to draw this because that's how it works, even though all evidence up to that point tells you, no, you're not. You're obviously going to win this comfortably. But I think they can. The way they played was still, in an attacking sense anyway, pretty encouraging.
Well, this weekend, Leicester are going to be at Fulham, while Spurs host Everton. Fulham, by the way, have just agreed a £30 million transfer for Crystal Palace's Joachim Andersen, which big move for them at the back. I guess, does that mean that Mark Guehi will now be staying at Selhurst Park? Would they sell both?
You'd think it would increase the chance of staying, yeah. I mean, to get rid of them both would leave them with a heck of a lot to do in a short space of time. And they keep, it feels like Newcastle just aren't quite matching what they want.
Spurs, meantime, are going to be hosting Everton. Everton, who got battered last weekend. Everton have won just one of their last 23 Premier League meetings with Spurs. Wow, that's a terrible record. That was under Carlo Ancelotti in 2020. You're giggling because Carlo Ancelotti was Everton manager.
When you look through the list of managers that they've had, it's genuinely quite hilarious of just like the succession planning, what goes on. It's just superb.
The outlet. I was there for that game. It was the first game of the 2020-21 lockdown season. So it was there was no fans in the ground. Very weird. 1-0. I think Calvert-Lewin scored.
Okay.
I mean this game last season, to be fair, Everton were quite unlucky to lose. They had a goal. I mean, we were honestly talking millimetres that didn't cross the line at the last minute. Would have been an equaliser. It was when Spurs had a ton of injuries. But at that time, Everton were on. They actually had a few away wins under their belt, but they haven't won away since that point.
No,
they didn't
11
win that game
Premier League
either.
matches.
Yeah.
Never has my knee twitched more than seeing Everton losing 3-0 to Brighton last weekend. Surely I can draw some conclusions from that?
Oh yeah, well, it was similar problems, right, that I think sort of stuck through for them. That they had quite a nice sort of high press early on. They really actually pinned Brighton back, had a couple turnovers, and then the penalty that gets overturned in the second half is again from a really sort of good, well-coordinated press. But it was actually when they had the ball and were attacking themselves and sort of pushed upfield, just no structure behind the ball, and they kept losing it. And within about 2 passes, Brighton were out, could release a winger. The first goal comes from a really good counter-attack where they get in behind. And you just go like, you can't keep sort of playing this way. That well, they kind of can, but the thing was, it was a really bad performance, and that was a case of when it goes wrong, it goes quite badly wrong. And of course, it was compounded because Ashley Young got sent off and ended up really sort of chasing the game, being well beaten. The 4th goal went in and got disallowed. But at the same time, they have made Brighton look quite silly in games gone past. They won 5-1 at the Amex. There was a really good 1-1 draw at the Amex last season where they were really strong. It was a really sort of good, typical Sean Dyche performance where they just block out the middle of the pitch, Brighton can't play through them, and then Everton can sort of hit them on the break. But it's tricky because I think they won their final 5 home games of last season all without conceding. I think they won a mix of 1-0 and 2-0 scorelines, and that is what they do a lot of the time. But you go, are you sort of treading quite a thin line between, wanting to move up the league or being in a relegation battle when you aren't sort of evolving in the way that other teams might be?
Yeah, I mean, it must be really frustrating for them because their hands are so tied by their financial situation. Talk that John Textor's takeover might be completed, I think, this coming week.
I've heard this one before.
Yeah. But, will it be in time for them to make any material change to their situation? I guess having a situation like you described last season and then taking Amadou Onana out of that, then, it's not great, is it? Yikes.
And still about Spurs.
Yes.
I had to sit down with Angie before the start of the season. Yes, yes. He was in a very relaxed mood and it was a really nice chat. But I thought it was just interesting how he didn't shy away from the expectations around him and Spurs for his second season, because I asked him about, how do you feel about second seasons? Because in a way, like, we know you better, but at the same time, you need to come up with, new things. for the opponents. And he was like, yeah, no, second season I usually win things.
Okay.
He
And
always wins the league if he has a completed second
Yeah,
season.
and
What's the sample size on that?
I think
Like,
you're
who are we
about-
talking with?
Well,
Yokohama Flugel
they were one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, Celtic, Brisbane Roar, South
Yeah.
Melbourne.
I
I mean,
just-
look, if you say this to his face, Jimbo.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying
I just
anything.
thought it was an interesting comparison if we go back to when Poch was at Spurs, and he would always say, "Oh no, winning Carabao Cup is not going to change the status and the
Just to flatter egos.
Yes, exactly. And I think with Ange is a bit different. I think like he would really go for and prioritize maybe a cup title. And if he's saying this at the start of the season, like usually I win things in the second season, I just thought it was interesting that he's not shying away from
He's
that.
pretty bullish about that and about his own record. Like he's not, he's not someone who shies away from talking about what he's done before and the fact that he thinks, I think he finds the dismissiveness of those leagues and what's gone before very irritating. But we'll see.
James, he's looking at you.
No, I'm not dismissing anything. I was just excited to mention one of the teams. Also, because I actually went to see them about a week ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, while you're in Japan, of course.
Yeah. It was the sweatiest experience of my life. Mostly because I went to Yokohama Stadium to see them, and they don't play there. They play at Nissan Stadium. So by the time I got to Nissan Stadium, boy, was I sweaty. It was about 38 degrees.
Ooh.
Apologies to whoever was sitting next to me because I just spent... Yeah. Anyway, that's exciting. But at the same time, you watching Spurs on Monday night had very familiar feelings.
Yes, and and Ange talked about that afterwards as well. It was a big frustration from last season. There were a lot of games where they just didn't take their chances, and then it happening again. Like he was clearly furious about that. And it's a weird one, I guess, as a manager because I don't know how much more you can, when you're creating the chances, the build-up players all as you want it, and obviously people say like, do more shooting practice and things like that, which sounds really simple, but I don't think it quite works like that.
Well, they had a striker who wasn't great at finishing, Richarlison, so they brought in...
I'm looking at Natalie here.
Wow.
Looking very much in your direction, Charlie, avoiding eye contact with Natalie. And they now brought in Solanke with the hope that he will improve on finishing. Didn't work last Monday.
It didn't, but an encouraging debut, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay. What happens for Richarlison now, Natalie?
Oh, now you're looking at me, right? Yeah, but this is actually something we were questioning ourselves, us as the Brazilian media in general, because he's not going to have as much game time, and he had the opportunity to leave Spurs now in the transfer window when he said, no, I'm staying because I have bigger dreams, his own words. Yes, so, and he's definitely aiming for the World Cup and national team and things like that. So, yeah, either he stays fit, which was kind of an issue last season, and fight for a position as a number 9, or he'll have to fight for a position in the left-hand side as a winger with Son, which is not the easiest task of all. But they do have Europe.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll get time. But I don't know how much time in the Premier League he'll get. I think it's more down to Solanke scoring goals and staying fit.
Okay. All right, I want to move on to Brighton, Liam.
Sure.
Brighton, who took Everton apart last weekend, this time around hosting Manchester United in what is fast becoming, I don't know about for the Premier League in general, but for Brighton fans, it feels like a significant fixture that's redolent in history. Seagulls lost 2-0 to United at the Amex just last May, and that was Roberto De Zerbi's final game. Prior to that, amidst a run of 4 straight wins against United, they beat the Red Devils 2-1 in Erik ten Hag's first game in charge. There was also the classic match in 2023 when Man United won with a goal scored after the final whistle.
A couple of years prior to that, I think.
Was it before
that?
that?
Bruno Fernandes.
penalty, wasn't it? It wasn't 2023.
And then...
No, it was also a lockdown game.
Was it lockdown?
And then, I think then maybe 2 seasons later, or 2023, Alexis McAllister scored a penalty to win 1-0 to basically get Brighton European football. And that became the latest penalty scored in a Premier League game since that Fernandes one.
Really?
But
Okay.
was before the final whistle.
Before the final whistle,
so lots of
okay.
penalties.
Well, this time around, Brighton, after a record summer of spending, breaking their transfer record twice, I think.
Yeah,
of course, the summer.
Tony Bloom's really got the, well, not even checkbook, is it, whatever digital wiring system out to.
Fabian Hürzeler in his first home game in charge. What have you made of him so far? How is his Brighton different to the previous fellows?
It's quite similar, actually, in attack. If you watch the way that they build up, it's not quite as aggressive in terms of he's gone with the same back four so far. He played a back three when he was in Germany. Whether that sort of player availability, don't know yet, because he fielded Jack Hinchelwood, who's normally a central midfielder, at left back. So he had, in fact, I think an entire back four of right footers, which obviously from a build-up perspective isn't completely ideal, but we're sort of trying to build through midfield. Everton did press them quite well. As I mentioned earlier, there were a couple of turnovers. Mats Wiefer had a couple as well where he got pressed from sort of an awkward angle, or he tried to work this sort of rehearsed routine where the ball came into his feet and he'd clip a pass out to the fullback and try and escape. And that was what led to the penalty situation, where he realised that press was coming, quickly tried to reconfigure and just basically fell over the ball in quite a sort of Sunday League fashion. But I think defensively they're much better. It's clearly something Hürzeler focuses on more of a focus, not necessarily just on clean sheets, but I think with the ball they're not quite as aggressive. It's not always sort of fullbacks into midfield or piling forwards, so they're not quite as open, sort of going the other way. But again, small sample, I feel compelled to say.
Yeah, that's true, particularly because Brighton regularly start really, really strongly and don't always follow it up, as we saw last season. The 140 million spent in the transfer window, which player are you most excited about?
Which of the many players?
Yeah.
How many players is it?
There's about 7 or 8, I think.
Okay.
There's a few in there. Yankuba Minter had a really, really good debut. Really sort of good, quick, left-footed right winger. A very similar profile to Karim Mitoma on the left-hand side. So you've got really that pace where you could just attack teams down the side. I think Jorginho Rutter from Leeds is going to be really important.
Jorginho Rutter?
Yeah. They've lost Pascal Gross, who again actually used to score goals for fun against Manchester United. And they've lost Gross's creativity, which is just not the sort of thing you can make up elsewhere in the team. You just need a player who, again, Rutter's a bit different, a bit more of a central player who plays through balls rather than a crosser. So I think he'll be really, really important. And Kozier Dubry as well from Arsenal, who won't, I think, go into the first team just yet. Mario Kozier Dubry, one of Arsenal's sort of very talented youngsters, I think. Could possibly be a big player, maybe not this season, but in seasons to come. Was a real big coup, from Arsenal.
It's quite impressive, their list of attacking players. Like you mentioned Rutter and Gruda, and like you have Mitoma, of course, one of the most exciting players to watch in the Premier League, definitely. You have Adingra, Welbeck, Sarmiento, João Pedro, Enciso, Ferguson. I mean, and
there's
you're
too
not
many.
Yeah, you're not playing Europe, you know.
I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had injuries.
Yeah, he had
Yes,
injuries,
yes.
but yeah, fantastic academy graduate, quite a unique sort of striker profile as well, but almost a penny for Roberto De Zerbi's thoughts after sort of complaining that he didn't have enough squad depth for half a season, and then him leaving the club and then Tony Bloom going, well, it's that's what you wanted, sort of thing.
Okay, Man United were also victorious last weekend. A narrower result for them, though, 1-0 against Fulham. Likely to bolster their squad with the arrival of Manuel Ugarte this week. Mickey Moran asks, who's in charge at United, Ten Hag or Ruud? Crowd were all chanting Ruud at the end of the Fulham game. Is that right?
I can believe it. But I mean, he's beloved.
He's beloved, isn't he? Crowds are going to crowd. Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts on United?
They can have, if they really sign him, they can have an interesting depth in squad, because you have a good option for midfield, and you have the Leach now as a defender. They did good business in the transfer window during the summer, and United can get to a point where, well, you never know because it's Man United, but they can get to a point where they have like really good options for all parts of at all parts of the pitch. So it's going to be good to see how this will develop until the end of the transfer window, which is a glorious day. God, I love it.
You can't wait for it to be over.
I cannot wait for it to be over, so we can talk only about football.
Right. Ugarte, who I guess is an option for Casemiro, or maybe
Yes.
comes in ahead of him.
Yes, no, and it's important to have an option for Casemiro. He's been good in this first couple of matches. He played well in the Community Shield and against Fulham as well, and he looks very fit. But at the same time, if you're at a club like Man United, you need options, and he apparently Man United are still negotiating in terms of price. PSG is asking for a lot. So yeah. You don't say, right?
Yeah.
I do remember Sporting looking really good the season before last in the Europa League.
He was replacing João Palhinha at
Yeah.
Sporting. Yes. He's a good tackler. Yeah, apparently.
Did get found out a bit in the Champions League last season. Was interesting in the group stages. Yeah, so Luis Enrique, I think maybe 2 or 3 games in, dropped him and brought in Fabian Ruiz, who of course went on and had a really good Euros campaign as well. And Vitinha at PSG has been a really, really good creative midfielder. It's just sort of like, from Manchester United's perspective, you're probably signing the wrong of the 3 sort of first choice PSG midfielders. Personally, just from what I've seen of him, he's don't want to bash him sort of because of his size, but he's not particularly big and can just sort of get found out a bit at times, I think, in midfield, particularly sort of in transition. Of course, the Champions League is a really tough stage, and
which they won't be playing in.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
So yeah, I suppose that part works. And it can be hard to assess players at PSG in Ligue 1 purely, obviously, because of the quality and the tactics that teams play. But yeah, I think it might not be the perfect signing that some fans might think it is. So I hate to ruin anyone's day.
All right. On that note, we'll take a quick break, and then very shortly we'll talk about the rest of the weekend's games. 22nd of August, listener, for us. On this day in 1964, it was the first ever what?
Match
of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's been a lot of news of this. All right. Match of the day, which started on BBC Two. Different theme tune, actually. Show was watched by 20,000 people. Don't know how many people had a set in 1964.
I always wonder how they estimate that and work that out.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
I mean, obviously, like, you wouldn't get it from Match of the Day and stuff when people watching like pubs or groups of people watching together, and
but even without that whole group, how do you estimate the group?
Yeah.
Literally, how many people do? Maybe they knew how many people had a set. I don't know. That's a very. It always used to be done on a sample size, and you extrapolate.
Yeah.
But well, it says 20,000 people, but we just don't know, do we, Liam? We don't.
Will we ever? That's what I want to believe.
Okay, on to the rest of this weekend's games, featuring on this Saturday's Match of the Day. Oh, won't be Wolves-Chelsea because that's played on Sunday, but they will be showing Crystal Palace-West Ham, which is Saturday 3:00, and also Saints-Nottingham Forest. Where in the running order do you think those 2 games will come on Saturday night? Crystal Palace-West Ham, Saints-Nottingham Forest. Do you think?
Well, hasn't Crystal Palace-West Ham been quite a high-scoring game?
It has. Here we go. The last 4 meetings at Selhurst Park, where this game will be taking place, have produced 24 goals. That's 6 goals a game. In April, the Eagles won 5-2 against David Moyes' Hammers.
I think it's an interesting fixture.
All right.
I'm going to stand up for this fixture. Yes. So with Palace, the manager mentioned that Eze, Guerri, and Adam Wharton, they had only 10 days of training ahead of opening match because, of course, they were involved with England in the Euros. And with West Ham, there's still so much to see about them, not only because of Lopetegui, but like the new signings, they started Guido Rodrigues and they started Max Kilman against Aston Villa, but you still have Somerville, you still have Philogen, who's back, and you have Niklas Füllkrug. I'm very much looking forward to see Niklas Füllkrug because he's such a good character.
He's a character.
Yeah, he's a character.
So you saw West Ham against Villa when, stats say, they had the second highest XG of any team on the opening weekend. Only Liverpool produced higher quality goal scoring chances. Eze, meantime, last weekend had more shots than any other Premier League player.
See how promising this fixture is?
Definitely.
Yes.
0-0.
Don't call me on Monday.
No, but it's also a duel of 2 managers who've both won the Europa League recently.
Yeah.
Lopetegui with Sevilla and Glasner with Eintracht Frankfurt. So there's, some proper pedigree there. What a time to be watching the Premier League. Excellent. I haven't finished with the games that are coming up this weekend, though, because there's also, Natalie, the game that you're going to.
Yes.
Bournemouth-Newcastle, Sunday at 2:00. So this is Eddie Howe back at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
obviously. It's also potentially a Bournemouth debut for their record signing this summer. Tell us about him.
Evanilson, yes, record-breaking signing. He did well at Fluminense, and then he got his transfer to Portugal quite soon. And in the past season for Porto, he did really well. He scored a hat-trick in the Champions League, in the group stage, and his numbers were very positive, 25 goals in 42 matches. I actually had a sit-down with him that were airing at Sky Sports during the weekend, and he knows about the comparisons with Solanke. Like, he's very aware of that, and I spoke to Iraola about that as well. So he made it very clear that they are different players, but he's very aware that he needs to score goals, and he mentioned that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he will step up to this position of just being Dominic Solanke's replacement, and how Iraola can develop him as well, because he's like he effectively did that with Solanke last season. And Newcastle, I really want to see Newcastle this season, because they had so many problems with injuries last season. I just want to see them first in a normal match, because the opening one didn't count. They basically defended during the whole second half.
After Fabian Hürzeler's red card, yeah.
After Fabian Hürzeler's red card. And now that they're going to have a fit squad, they kept Isaac, they kept Joelinton, they kept Bruno Guimarães, and they're not playing Europe. So they're going to be very competitive in the Premier League.
back as well.
Tonali back
as well.
not this weekend, but following Wednesday he'll be available. Fabian Hürzeler not available for the next few games because of that red card. Evanilson, then aware of Solanke. Is he aware how mind-blowing it is, probably for most people, to see a Brazilian international? Because he got a cap this summer, didn't he?
Yes, for Copa America. It was a big surprise for Brazilians as well.
Okay, so to see an actual Brazilian international playing for Bournemouth. It is a bit of a mind...
Yeah, I mean, it's yes, they sold Solanke, but this is where the Premier League is, financially relative to a lot of league. And I think people find it a bit uncomfortable that, a guy who, was playing for Porto in the Champions League, and coming
25 goals for them last season.
Yeah. I mean, the previous season, I think Forest went and signed one of PSV's best players, and they were about to play in the Champions League. And yeah, that's where it is. And that's also why when, big teams talk about, we can't sell any of our players anymore. And a big reason for that is, if you're Bournemouth, say, you don't need to go and sign a Manchester United cast-off. You can go and you sign a player like this. So things have changed a lot.
Yeah, as far as goes for Brazilians, it used to be Barcelona and Real Madrid. Like their dream was Barcelona and Real Madrid. And now, if you ask any young player in Brazil, they're going to say the Premier League.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Specifically Bournemouth?
Yeah. I mean, you got
That's
the beach.
It's a bit of a stretch, but
It's got the beach.
Bit more north,
no?
Southampton.
Yeah.
It's got yeah.
Yeah, it's got the beach. Yes,
Yeah.
the beach vibes. Yeah.
Very similar vibes to
Postcard.
Excellent. So, we
It's a
might be
lovely
seeing
club.
him against Newcastle. And that's going to be exciting. If we're talking about transfers, though, how about Chelsea?
15 players not training with.
So, yeah, all right. So that's a remarkable circumstance for the club to be dealing with. And they've helped, by signing another one. So João Felix, who they brought in a couple of years ago on loan, they paid 20 million for the honour. He wasn't a huge success. Got sent off, actually, on in his debut. So then he went to Barcelona on loan. He also wasn't a huge success. So Chelsea have done the logical thing and decided to sign him now for 60 million on 300k a week for 7 years. On Tuesday in our Euro show, Paul Balouse was telling us that Atleti effectively signed Conor Gallagher just to get rid of João Felix. That was their motivation.
That's flattering.
It's quite funny, but also a real shame, because you think about like Chelsea with that academy generation that underpinned the Champions League win, 3 years ago now. There's that great photo of them with the trophy. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and the only one remaining from that group now is Reece James. And it's just...
And that's because he's injured, probably.
Yeah, partly reason why teams don't want to go for him. It's also then ironic that you look at how much depth they haven't got in fullback, despite sort of having such a front-loaded team where you've got Ben Chilwell and Reece James, who, with the tagline "when they're fit," which I think Mark Carroll or someone did a piece on it a while ago, and it's the number of games where they're both fit across the season is literally you can count on one hand. And of course, the real shame then is that now they're playing a system where they like to have the fullbacks inside. It's not these big attacking, overlapping fullbacks again. You almost wish they could go back to the Conte era of the flying wing backs, and you can then get the creativity from there. So there's technically nothing wrong with it, but I think it's just a really sad way to run a club, because you had such a good academy system that was helping develop really good talent, and to then just sell that to buy other people's young talent works as a business, I suppose. But I don't know. To me personally, it doesn't sit very well.
Well, there's also this issue that with PSR that the pure profit that you almost get rewarded for selling your academy products, which clearly isn't right, and they need to look at that.
Okay. Chilwell and Raheem Sterling among the group of however many it is, 15, 16 players who are now training separately, kind of parked while waiting for a move.
Okay, so we know Maresca doesn't walk on eggshells, right? Because he just goes like, I'm not saying Raheem is not a good player, but I prefer a different type of winger. That's it. And I have too many players and I have to deal with that. So that's it. And to be fair, it sounds a little brutal. It does. But at the same time, he does need to deal with that. He does need to choose players and cut players off.
And I mean, social media would suggest that there are a lot of Chelsea fans who are not that unhappy with Raheem, maybe looking for a new chapter in his career. But I don't know, with Chelsea, I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for doing this and the João Felix move, etc. I'm not sure tactically if he had something that they didn't have before, but it just feels like, I don't know, how are you going to win if you ain't right within, as the song says. Does João Felix, does that make any sense for you, Liam?
Again, good player, but you just go from a squad building perspective, where does he fit and what were you already missing when you've probably signed that same type of player 5 or 6 times? You're like, you can't play 6 ball to feet number 10s and expect to be a functioning football team. So again, it's like individually look at all the signings and you go, good player, but what all the best clubs will do is go, you see the big depth chart up in the office and they go, where do we need spots? Who do we need to fit in? Good age balance, left footers, right footers, etc.
And Chelsea fans are screaming, the striker, where's the striker? Because,
Which Sterling was once upon a time, or at least, scored tap-ins for fun. So there's always a thing of, could you not reconfigure him in some way to play a different role?
I really want to see how Maresca is going to develop this relationship with the players that are going to stay, because he looks like this very straightforward kind of guy. Some players respond well to that. Others, I'm not sure. But at the same time, is the ownership going to back him with these decisions as well, and the way he's conducting these decisions? And it's not a criticism for Maresca. I think there are different types of managers and different types of there are different ways to manage this type of situations.
Would these be his decisions though, or the club's?
Maybe both, but he's the one who needs to face the media and go to press conferences and say, Raheem Sterling, not my type of winger, and justify these decisions that might not be entirely his. But, this also creates a little bit of strain with players, and we know how footballers can be and can, get a bit offended with these things. But I completely understand. He needs to make decisions. There are, again, 15 players. 15 players.
It's too many, because even if they're 15 really good players, the odds of them all gelling together and working really well. I think Cole Palmer said at the start of last season, where I can't remember, someone interviewed him and said something really terrible about, don't you just need more good players at Chelsea like you? And he was saying,
Tim
Sherwood was saying, it was like a really what's he meant to say in response to that sort of thing. But he made the point of being like, we're all a new group. We need to get time to learn to play together and gel together. And by the end of the season, they were playing really, really well. They were consistently winning games. They're playing well against better teams. And you go, you can't keep ripping a squad up. We saw it with Liverpool, I think, a season or a season and a half ago, where you take so many pieces out. It does take time, especially when you've got, I know European football in a sense to sort of configure within that, but it's hard to do, as good as your players might be sort of tactically or whatnot. It takes time to build that group together.
Absolutely. European football's still a question mark for Chelsea this season. They have to get past Servette, Swiss size Servette. That'll be happening. Maybe it'll happen by the time you hear this, actually, listener. The first leg of their clash with Servette. That's to get into the Europa Conference League. Pedro Neto, one of the players they signed this summer, and of course this will be a special fixture for him. Back at Molineux, which he's just left, taking on Wolves. Wolves, who, by the way, have a good record against Chelsea. How good? They've won 3 in a row against the Blues. Ooh.
Including Christmas Eve last year.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that was a big...
Controversially.
Yeah. And Sterling missed a big chance in that game, as it happens.
As it happens. Okay. One more game by my reckoning. And look, it's made last on our running order. Southampton, Nottingham Forest. Forest have never lost away to Southampton in the Premier League in 6 previous visits. Here's another stat. Southampton is not as far south as Bournemouth. Eddie Nketiah might be on his way to Forest. I'm excited by that news. Should I?
Yeah, I quite like it. Well, I mean, I don't know how he displaces Chris Wood. I think Chris Wood's one of the most fun strikers in the Premier League that just doesn't get, I think people have seen him for so long, especially anyone that watched the EFL when he was there with Leeds. But it's just, there's something very almost Barclays about Forest and the way they play, of a big number 9, quick wingers, creative number 10s in a nice 4-2-3-1. It's just, it's very straightforward to watch. Whereas that they're probably not as good defensively as they sort of plan to be a lot of the time. And I think they stayed up last season with the lowest points total for a team to stay up. Obviously, that includes a points deduction, so they obviously need to improve. But I think in an era where everyone's talking about goal scorers again and big number 9s, and the Premier League goals numbers are off the charts, I think I just really enjoy watching Chris Wood.
Okay.
And they do have a lot of kind of young, quite exciting players. I mean, Eddie Nketiah, he has played a little bit out on the wings. It's not where he's best, obviously, but there is a world in which you can see, maybe he does that if they want to play both him and Chris Wood. I mean, he's an interesting one. He definitely has improved a lot from, when he first came into the team or even into the sort of setup. He was very much just a penalty box poacher, which is still his best asset is that he is his getting of chances. He's not necessarily always the best finisher. I think he sort of seemed like that was his thing, but he actually he does miss a reasonable amount of chances. But he's really good at being in the right positions. His movement's very good. His anticipation's very good. But yeah, he always looked just a bit below that level to be a starting striker for one of the best teams. But it will be he needs to play. That's the thing. He's always said, "Give me a run of games, I'll score goals." And obviously that's hard for him to get when he was at a club like Arsenal and there was so much competition. But yeah, if he can displace Wood, or they can find a way for them to play together. I mean, this time last year he was in the England squad. He started last season really well, got an England call up. So clearly there's a lot of talent there.
Ben Bergson Diaz, South American trickster Ben Bergson Diaz, probably featuring for Southampton. Do you know he's never had a win in the Premier League? He's played 15 Premier League matches, admittedly at Sheffield United, now Southampton, yet to taste victory.
That's rough.
Yeah. I don't know what the record is, but I feel like the record's is quite a long way kind of north of there in terms of number of games played without a...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Gareth Bale, do you remember famously? He got off to a really bad start. He didn't win a Premier League game for ages.
Quick, someone get Duncan Alexander.
Yeah.
Producer Charlie. He's already cracked the door of the studio. What's he going to tell us?
Is there a Derby player from that 07-08 team?
Marvin Sordell of Bolton, 17 games.
Oh, thanks, Producer Charlie. Yeah, the answer is Marvin Sordell of Bolton Wanderers. Liam, 17 appearances, featured in 17 Premier League matches, without ever winning. That's
almost half a season. It's,
Ben Bergson Diaz could this weekend move to just one game off that if his Saints manage to not win against...
Lads in the dressing room telling me about it.
Yeah.
Territory.
There you go. Wow, looking forward to that.
Are we?
No, just generally.
Okay, yes.
And that's the thing about football and, of course, the Premier League. But football, you just never know, Natalie, where the bangers are going to be. But we will be here on Sunday night to review what happens at St Mary's and elsewhere. Anything else we should say? Charlie, you've got a plane to catch. Any message you want to leave football with?
Just, enjoy it.
Family.
Keep enjoying it. There'll be an international break as well in the second week of the US Open. But I am. The time difference means, I'll probably be able to watch some kind of morning Premier League.
Will you go along to a New York bar and watch?
It might be a bit early, although
I've done that.
Have
you?
you?
It was great.
For what, like a 10 a.m. local time kickoff?
It was about this time last year, and I went to see Arsenal Man United.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, with a very big plate of breakfast. And I warmly recommend it. And a lot of Bloody Marys, actually.
Where's the place with the massive screen and all the seats that they were showing?
That's in Los Angeles.
LA.
Yeah.
I know. I did.
So that picture
A
looks
short hop from you.
That seems to be like a locked off camera shot that they've got, which
I thought that's really cool.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
We would love to do that. Yeah. Just not
Listen,
that
if you
won't be
know
that
where
close.
that is, or if you've been there, would you please get in touch?
Tennis, is that what tennis needs to take from football?
Yeah,
to create
maybe.
that?
Yeah. Have more of
Right.
that immersive experience.
Good. All right. Liam, anything what you want to leave us with?
No, just happy to be here.
Good.
Thank you, yeah.
Great. Happy to have you. And Natalie, lovely to see you. I hope you're going to enjoy. Which game was it you're going to again?
Bournemouth, Newcastle.
Bournemouth, Newcastle.
Yes,
All
Super
right.
Sunday.
Down south in the Brazil.
Yeah,
in the kind of
Brazilian vibes.
Be like a home
Brazilian
from home.
vibe, yeah. Wear your Havaianas.
yes,
Yeah.
I will.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Listener, thank you for being with us. Thanks as well to Liam and producer Charlie in the booth. We'll be back, as I mentioned, on Sunday night. So you can also watch us putting that show together on a live stream, or just hang around and it'll pop up in your feed sometime late Sunday night, Monday morning. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.